Good morning, everyone. There's a story about this guy who was standing at a train station and an elderly woman fell down on the tracks as the train was coming head on. And this young man jumped down onto the tracks and managed to pull the woman off the tracks right before the train arrived and saved her life. And there was such a commotion and applause for this man who was such a hero. And then this guy, and one of the reporters said, "Where did you get the courage to jump down right in front of the train to pull this lady out and risk your life?" And the guy said, "I'll tell you the truth." He says, "I knew that if she would get hit by the train, there would be a major delay in the train station. I would get late. I would be late to work. It would mess up my whole schedule for the day." And suddenly, instead of being a big hero, he became just an ordinary human being. Sometimes we could do the most heroic, courageous things, the most outstanding acts, but our motives are very small and narrow-minded and selfish, and they're not really that great. On the outside, it looks like it was something great, but really it came from a very small place. And sometimes you can do something very small, but your intention could be so noble and righteous that the deed may be small, but the act is really extraordinary. This week's parsha, the opening verse says, Re'eh, God says, "See, I've placed before you a blessing and a curse." And the blessing is that you will obey, bracha asher tishmon, that you will listen to the commandments of Hashem. And we all know throughout the book of Devarim, the verb that's always used is listen to the words of Hashem. Shema Yisrael, hear O Israel, v'hayim shemoah, if you will listen to my commandments. And even in the second verse it says, what's the blessing? Asher tishmon, that you will hear, that you will listen. So why is the name of the parsha and the opening word, Re'eh, see? Suddenly we're told not to listen, but to see. See that the blessing is to hear. And the answer, one answer amongst many, is that what is the greatest blessing? Not the reward that you're going to get for keeping the commandments, but as it says in Pirkei Avot, the reward for the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. You know what the reward is? The reward is that you actually listen. Being able to obey and do what Hashem tells you to do, that is the greatest mitzvah. And that deed was motivated by goodness and righteousness. Leading a life of goodness, of righteousness, leading a life that's motivated by kindness and by love and by compassion, when you see that what's behind the deed was the goodness of the person, what could be better than expressing your inner goodness in this world? See what is behind the deed. That is the greatest reward. The intent of the mitzvah and the emotions and the thought that goes along with the mitzvah, that's the greatest reward. I heard a quote recently that said like this: don't worry so much about whether your kids are listening to you or not. What you should worry more about is that your kids are watching you. And I think one of the meanings of this is, it's not just the question, are your kids obeying you or not obeying you? What matters most is they're watching you, meaning they see who you really are. They see your true nature, your true character. They know you best. And what they learn most is from your intent, your motivations. The whole world may think one thing about you, but your kids know what really drives you, so to speak. And therefore, what they're watching you is what they're going to learn from the most. The story told about a girl who walked into a jewelry shop in Yerushalayim, and she starts looking through the counter, the jewelry, the cases, and she says to the shopkeeper, a religious man in Jerusalem, "How much is that bracelet?" It was a beautiful gold bracelet with diamonds, and it was 4,000 shekel. It's like a lot of money. This girl's 9 years old. He says to her, "Why do you need this bracelet?" And the girl says, "My mother died a few years ago from cancer, and I have an older sister, a teenage sister. She's 17, and she takes such good care of me and my siblings. And it's her birthday today. I wanted to buy her a present." So the shopkeeper says, "How much money do you have, young girl?" She takes out her little purse. He pours all her shekels on the counter. He counts it up. It's 38 shekel and 10 agurot. And the shopkeeper says, "That's exactly the price of the bracelet." He takes the money, he takes the bracelet, he wraps it up in a nice box with a wrapping paper and a bow, and he gives it to her. The girl happily runs out of the store. A few hours later, a teenage girl comes running into the store and says, "I'm really sorry, I see my sister got this from your store. I hope she didn't steal it, but I want to return it." And the man says, "Why do you want to return it?" He says, "Because obviously she didn't pay for this." And the shopkeeper says, "No, your sister paid. Your sister paid in full." He says, "How could it be? This is thousands of shekels. She can't afford this. She doesn't have that kind of money." The shopkeeper says, "Let me tell you something. A number of years ago, I lost my wife. And every day I sell jewelry to men and to women, but a lot of times to men. And they're so happy they're buying jewelry for their wives. And it pains me because I miss my wife and I don't have the opportunity anymore to give. He says, but when your sister came in and said, I want to buy this for my sister who takes care of my life since my wife passed away, I got the feeling of what it really means to give. And therefore I want you to know your sister paid in full. She paid with a full heart. And it's the heart, the full heart that we put into our deeds that matters most. And so see, the Torah says, that the real blessing in life is when we listen to the commandments of Hashem and we put our full heart that's behind it. When you see the blessing in the skies, behind the blessing is the feeling and the goodness that is expressed with that deed. That is the ultimate blessing, not the reward that comes from it.